So, Mark, here with Mark today. I know you got a bit of collection. We've been talking about the Neo Geo games and stuff. Obviously, you can't be making of fighters and that, but you know, we just have to keep that for another day.
About that.
Alright, so talk us through your collection, because obviously I've come here and I've seen the games, the collection.
I've been collecting video games a long time, but I decided quite a few years ago that I'd had enough of just adding games because they were rare or popular in other people's eyes. So I decided to backtrack right to my very first ever video game, which was this.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, and then to a point up in 2001, which is when I kind of stopped video gaming as a gamer and concentrated more on arcade refurbishment and electrical projects and stuff like that. So yeah, I literally went and just bought every game in that sort of 12-year period that I ever owned, or ever played sort of at a friend's house and really enjoyed. I'm about 20 games away from finishing my collection now. Just a few Super Nintendo, a few Neo Geo, the odd NES game hasn't done.
So what games are you looking for then to collect that, to finish the completion? Because I'm looking at the games here now and I'm just like, whoa.
Let's try and do this by format. For the NES, I need Gradius, I need Castlevania 3, and I think that's it. For the SNES, I need US Dracula X, US R-Type 3, US Flashback. PlayStation 1, I got everything. N64, not much I like on that. GameCube, just for the Resident Evils. Yeah, and a handful of Neo Geo games, mostly a few King of Fighters, stuff like that, It's nice to basically get closure on a hobby. And the thing is, there's so many video games out there these days that you could just, like Pokemon, just waste so much time trying to catch them all. Just buy the stuff that matters for you, get it in respectable condition. That's the way I do it, I want it to look like it was when I bought it all those years ago.
Alright, so we spoke before about the final fight and the guy. Obviously, there's one here. Like, explain to me, why is there only one version? Well, there's not even only one version, sorry. There's multiple versions of the final fight on...
Final fight is basically the story of you playing me on KOF 98. No, I'm only joking.
I body you.
No, that's safe. No, you'll get banged. But anyway... what am I describing again? Remind me.
So like, obviously there's this final fight here.
Yeah.
What?
Okay.
Remember we was talking about it before, and like there's only on the Super Famicom.
This is Final Fight Guy. Alright, the story behind Final Fight is a bit of a weird one. When it came out on the Super Nintendo, the technology wasn't really there to do it justice at the time. I think the max they had was like an 8 megabit cartridge. Yeah. Street Fighter 2 being the first 16. So what they decided to do, everyone knows Final Fight has 3 characters. It's Guy, Cody, and Haga. The Super Nintendo Super Famicom version left out Guy originally. It was just Cody and Haga, only 2 characters to choose, no 2-player mode, and the whole of the level with Rolento missing. A lot of people were annoyed that they couldn't choose Guy, so Capcom brought out this version, which is exactly the same as the other game, except this time it hasn't got Cody, it's got Guy instead.
Let me see the back. Let me see the back of it. Oh snap!
Comes with some limited edition CD as well that I've never actually listened to. But there you go. The thing is, for all the limitations this game had, is actually a really good game. Obviously the Mega CD version that came out some years later did a better job. Even added like a bonus, like a time attack sort of method in it, I think. Had all 3 players, had the 2-player mode, had the missing level, Interestingly enough, okay, so here you've got Final Fight Guy, and somewhere around here, I don't know where, oh yeah, up here you've got the first Final Fight, the Cody release. This is the American version. As you can tell, the artwork is like worlds apart. It doesn't look Japanese at all. I mean,
I feel it looks like Western kind of that Texas kind of.
Haga kind of looks like a cross between like Burt Reynolds and I don't know what, Pierce Brosnan.
Doesn't even look like the same Haga from the Marvel vs. Capcom.
Yeah, it doesn't. He looks watered down. He looks ready for retirement there, and that was when the game was fresh. Yeah, so Nintendo at the time were very kind of softly with their approach to violence in video games. You wouldn't believe how much. Final Fight, the American version, the original Japanese Final Fight, like the arcade, there were a couple of girls in there, one called Poison, one called Roxy. And Nintendo didn't like the idea that this game was promoting. They didn't think it would go down well in the US to see girls basically getting hit with pipes and katana swords and everything. So they basically changed them to. They changed the Poison and the Roxy sprites into males, simply for the Western release, for America and for the UK. And that's the truth behind. Poison was never written in as a transvestite. Okay, that's something that basically people are trying to enforce now, and people in Capcom are saying this who weren't even probably playing games, let alone working for Capcom at the time when Final Fight was released back in the 80s. So yeah, there's no truth to that at all. The truth is it was simply Nintendo's softly approach, which is why the character appears as a girl, and in the very same game, just in another country, appears as a guy. It's not the same person at all. It's just literally a different character sprite to appease, you know, the softly approach that was had back then.
Nice. So I see that you got King of Fighters 95 here.
Oh yeah, that game, that franchise I'd body you on. Yeah.
That you can't body me on.
I'll fully body you, fam.
I see.
Trust me, rude boy.
I see Street Fighter Alpha, the collection.
Yeah.
No. These are the Super Famicom. This
Super Mario 4 there. The first time I saw that, I went so insane because the artwork is beautiful. You know, it's absolutely beautiful. And I just literally finished playing Super Mario 3. The Super NES wasn't even available in the UK at the time because back then the consoles had a much longer period. They didn't have worldwide release within the same week. It'd be months, sometimes years apart. You know, so the Super NES wasn't even out in the UK. I'm walking up and down Tottenham Court Road, which used to be full of grey import shops. Now it looks like it's office furniture, whatever. I see this game in the window and I see it's Super Mario Brothers 4. I see Mario riding a dinosaur and I'm like, oh my god, I need this game in my life.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nah, you've got a collection, man. You've got a collection. Thanks. For the people that don't know, what's the difference between Famicom, Super Famicom, and Nintendo, or Nintendo and Super Nintendo? What's the difference?
Okay,
or NES,
so
should we say?
Some people say SNES and some people say Super NES.
Yeah.
The NES, or the NES, is the first Nintendo system, the 8-bit console. And the Super NES, or the SNES, was the successor that came after, which was, even though billed as being 16-bit, was actually, it had 8-bit processing going on. What was the other one?
Famicom.
Famicom is an abbreviation, a juncture of family computer, which is just the Japanese version for the NES. Interestingly enough, in Japan, the NES wasn't just a cartridge-based system; it was also available as floppy disk. But I think a lot of piracy led to that being dumped as the reason why we only got the cartridge versions in the West. Super Famicom is basically, again, it's just the older brother of the Famicom, the Japanese version of the Super Nintendo. You know, the first one.
Alright. You know your stuff. Alright. One more thing. What's the difference between the Neo Geo MVS and the Neo Geo AES?
Oh my god.
You know, so you have to test people, you know, because obviously...
That's as bad as that question that Capcom did on the radio show when they basically gave away a Vulix and the question was something like, who is Ryu's long-term rival? You know, one is the home system and one is the arcade system. You know,
what's the abbreviation of it though? What's the
AES is Advanced Entertainment System and MVS is Multi-Video System.
So, just because you know that don't mean that you're good at King of Fighters, though.
I know too much. If I ever let you run around inside my head, you just be there for the rest of your life, soaking up data of retro gaming.
And you got Tekken there as well. Show us the Tekken, all three of them.
Where were they? Oh yes, I picked these all up. Let me tell you something. The first time I ever saw this Tekken 1, you know, sorry, I just want to show off the spine card because, you know, bragging rights. The first time I ever saw this, when the PS1 first got to this country, not as an official English release, on import. The first place I saw it, I believe, was the end of 1994 in CEX, the first ever CEX in Rathbone Place. And it was $119.99. Yeah, because I mean, alright, think about it, back then there's no internet. You know, what are you going to do? Wait months for it to come out in the UK? You can't order it from Japan. How are you going to do that? You know, nobody could do that. You were reliant on the import shops. When they told you what to pay, your hand went in your pocket. And the PlayStation itself, the PlayStation 1, $1,249.99. It was cutting edge technology. Now you find them at like car boot sales for $5, sometimes not even that. Yeah, so you know, when you find this like some 20 years later for a couple of quid versus the 120 you paid for it in the heyday, it's like, well, I might as well pick it up. It's a bit of nostalgia there. 2, which was just awesome, and Tekken 3, well, that's when I stopped playing.
I need to get you back into it, man. Tekken 7's around the corner, man.
Yeah.
You got all the Final Fantasies here as well. I ain't gonna lie, I'm a Final Fantasy guy as well.
Yeah, the main sort of 3 that were exclusive on PS1 at the time. I think you can get all the Final Fantasies prior to 7 on PS1 as well, on various collections apart from Final Fantasy 3.
Oh, serious?
Yeah. You got the Final Fantasy Origins, which is 1 and 2. Then you got the Final Fantasy Anthology, which is 4, and Chrono Trigger. No, sorry, Chronicles. Anthology is 5 and 6.
Man. Yeah. So how long have you been collecting games for, man?
I've started and stopped and got rid of and started from scratch again so many times, but the last time I did it, I just decided to myself, look, you know, just keep hold of it this time. It's like every time I needed money, I would just look at games and think, well, I could take that to CEX and get some change, but there comes a point where you kind of got to be responsible and, like, you know, hang on to things that feel they matter to you, you know. Just don't let it get too out of control. I've had that in the past. I've spent, my first copy of Metal Slug AES was £1,100, and I paid that off in 3 instalments to Raven Games. Thanks, Tony, if you're watching.
So, Metal Slug, for those that don't know, that was on the Neo Geo, and that's a 16-bit, that was on a 16-bit console game. But we both spoke about this earlier on, that the price for those games are insane.
Well, it's all to do with the production rates. I mean, they didn't... I think in 1996, a lot of Neo Geo games got very low got very low releases, because what they were doing at the time was they were trying to push their CD system over the home cartridge, because obviously that was more affordable to more people. It just was so noticeably bad compared to the AES, you know. It just... yeah, it never
loading times, and there was drop frames on certain games and stuff like that.
There was, yeah. You know, you see on 97, you see how Yamazaki breathes on the home cartridge. You know, his chest is like that. On CDs, it's like there's just missing frames in between. It just looks dumb. But kudos to a lot of the orchestrated soundtracks that they did. Some of those were definitely better than the cartridge versions.
So would you say that? See, with the Neo Geo,
yeah.
Why would people spend, like, I don't know, let's say, like, you said you spent what you spent on Metal Slug.
Yeah.
Why do you think that was? Like, because at the end of the day, you've got games that was coming out on PlayStation at the time for like 40 quid.
Neo Geo can be very hypnotic. One thing it was always billed as was ahead of its time. The future is now, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And it brought out it had so many great fighting games that the other consoles at the time just couldn't match it, you know? I mean, there were a lot of good SNK titles on the Saturn, again, mostly all in Japan because they required RAM cart.
Yeah.
And, you know, the PlayStation 1 versions, they were there, but they were just god terrible because for some reason the PlayStation, it was better at doing the 3D fighters, the Street Fighter EX series, Tekken, Soul Edge, Blade, whatever. Not so great for the 2D games, you know?
Yeah, no, definitely.
But the Neo Geo, they come in these really big, beautiful snap lock cases.
Yeah.
There's something very kind of, I don't know, it's like it strokes your video gaming ego.
Yeah.
To have, I got up to about 120 of them at one point.
Serious?
Yeah.
That must have been a lot of money though, because
it was. I mean, but granted, this was back in 2004. The prices were completely different. You know, you had games that used to sell for sort of like 20 quid, now selling for like over 100, etc., etc. And as I said, I ran retro CEX in the West End, so I was always able to get my hands on them first.
Wow.
Yeah.
Alright then, man. Thank you very much for your time, man.
No props.
Cheers.
Peace.